took the crown of England in January the 15th, 1559. Elizabeth's ascension to the throne required a great deal of good luck, or bad luck, depending on whose perspective you take. Following the death of her father, King Henry VIII, she was third in line after her younger half-brother Edward and her older half-sister Mary. A 10-year-old Edward took the throne in 1547, ruling for only 6 years before dying of a fever. Just before his passing, he named his successor, Lady Jane Grey, his successor. However, Jane's stint on the throne was a brief 13 days. Mary succeeded in having Jane deposed and took over the crown herself for 5 years. But influence took the childless Mary's life in 1558, allowing Elizabeth to at last become the Queen of England, Wales and Ireland. Your Majesty.
Before I was queen, I was a political prisoner. In 1554, I was tried and imprisoned on suspicion of abating Wat's rebellion and uprising against Queen Mary I that many believed to be motivated by the quest for Protestant liberation. I was a clothes horse. Even though I have remembered for my high fashions, it's surprising to know just how expensive my wardrobe was. According to one estimate, I may have owned as many as 2,000 pairs of gloves. I was a firm believer in astrology. I kept a personal advisor named John Dee, a renowned mathematician, astronomer, astrologer, and professional chemist in my regular company. I relied on Dee's counsel in the scheduling of important events and, as one rumor suggests, in the removing of a troublesome death curse.
There was a cult surrounding her. Upon Elizabeth's claim of the throne, her team of advisors encouraged the trend of flattering depictions among her portrait artists. As time went on, depictions of Queen Elizabeth I in both visual and written media became to incorporate likenesses of classic goddesses. She was compared to Venus, Astrea, and the Greek deity Diana, all in effort to expose connotations of divinity and purity. This trend of work is known as the cult of Elizabeth or the cult of the Virgin Queen.
I pioneered legislation to help feed the poor. When it wasn't spreading propaganda, my administration was actually doing some good. I oversaw the nation's first attempts at poverty relief and gradual accumulation of rulings like mandatory taxation towards this end, which culminated with the 1601 Poor Law. I could speak many languages. In addition to my native English, I was known to be fluent in French, Italian, and Latin, going so far as to translate collections of lengthy text into these languages. I'm also believed to have spoken Spanish, Welsh, Irish, Flemish, and now know the defunct tongue of Cornish. Clearly the intellectual type, I made it my mission whilst to patronize the theatrical arts. My devotion to stage led to an assortment of musings regarding my relationship to William Shakespeare. If the tabloids had existed in the 16th century, they would have had a field day with me. I turned down proposals from likes of King Philip II of Spain, King Eric of Sweden, Archduke Charles of Austria, and French Prince Henry III and Francis, Dukes of Anjou. Throughout my life, I won true love remained my childhood friend Robert Dudley, whose marriage to Amy Robsart kept the two from achieving my long-desired union. Even after the death, the sudden of Robsart in 1560, I resisted marrying my lifelong friend. 18 years later, he go on to find a second wife, Lettice Knollys, whom I was set to treat with merciless scorn. Despite the many men who vied for my hand, I never took a husband. I'm the only English queen to bear this distinction, although the 8 kings also reigned lifelong bachelors.
The looks were quite deceiving. Following a bout with smallpox in the early 1560s, Elizabeth I suffered facial scarring and hair loss, but nobody would have known it. She kept up appearances with an ample supply of gallant wigs and applications of white makeup over her face, which was in keeping with the style of this era. She cursed like a sailor. Elizabeth was infamous for her proclivity for colorful language, a characteristic she is said to having inherited from her father, King Henry VIII.
I held one impressive record, aged 69, at the time of my death. I was at the time the oldest monarch in English history. I held this honor until 1754, when King George II, hit the ripe of 70 old, while still ruling of, become Great Britain.
To sum up, I can say, in addition to being the last monarch to reign unmarried, she was also the last to rule over England before its union with Scotland. Elizabeth died in 1603, in the same year that the Treaty of Union with Scotland, or the Union of England and Scotland Act, would take effect under the watch of her successor, James I. Finally, Elizabeth was the final of 5 kings and queens to rule under the Tudor dynasty.